Good morning, everybody. Today's lecture is on D block elements. Firstly, I would like to give the importance of D block elements. This D block elements is introduced in second year BSc semester 3 under inorganic chemistry. The study of the transition metals is very important as they have many uses in our everyday life, like they act as good conductors, they have complex forming ability, they have same atomic size, so they can be replaced easily in a crystal lattice. They have good malleability and ductility, so that they can be easily made into any other type of metal based products. One unique property of these transition metals is that they are essential for biological life to function. So where we can see the D block elements, actually these are placed in between S and P block elements in the long form of periodic table. That is, here we can see from 21 to 30, that is scandium to zinc, and the next series yttrium 39 to 48 cadmium, and from lutetium 71 to mercury. So these are the elements in the series that covers the D block elements or the transition elements. So these D block elements, they are transition in between the most electropositive S block elements and the electronegative elements. So what are actually the D block elements? So these are the elements of group 3 to 12 in the center of the periodic table, or these are also can be named as group 3A, 4A, 5A, 6A, 7A, 8A and 1B and 2B. Okay, so these are the groups that consist of D block elements, and these are characterized by filling the inner D orbitals. That means they consist of incompletely or partially filled D subshell. Such elements having incompletely filled or partially filled D subshell are called as D block elements, and these elements have the general outer electronic configuration as n-1 into D 1 to 10, n is 1 to 2. This n-1 stands for the penultimate shell containing d orbitals, which may have 1 to 10 electrons, and the outermost ns orbital may have 1 or 2 electrons. The D block elements are also, as said earlier, they are also known as transition elements, as they form bridge between chemically active S block elements and less active elements of group 13 and 14. That is, they are transition between electropositive S block and electronegative P block elements. Non-typical D block elements. Here we can observe the non-typical D block elements. Here the elements of 2B group, zinc, cadmium, mercury, have completely filled n-1 into D subshell. Hence, according to the definition, they are not included in the transition elements. However, they are studied with D block elements due to rational classification of elements. Further, elements of 3A group like scandium, yttrium, lanthanum, actinium differ markedly in their properties from that of other transition elements. Since they have partly filled D subshell, they are considered as transition elements. These 2B and 3A group elements are called as non-typical transition elements, while the other elements are called as typical transition elements. So from this we can understand the difference between typical and non-typical D block elements. Now coming to the general characteristics of D block elements. Earlier we said that in this D block elements we have 3 to 12 groups, and we have around 4 series, and the fourth one is incomplete. 3D, 4D and 5D series are complete with 10 elements each. So 3D series consists of 21 scandium to zinc 30, and 4D series consists of yttrium 39 to 48 cadmium. 5D series consists of lanthanum 57 to mercury 80. And the general characteristics includes electronic configuration, variable valency, magnetic properties, catalytic properties, ability to form complexes, stability of various oxidation states. So from the next slides we can go in detail about the properties of or the general characteristics of d block elements. So coming to the electronic configuration of d block elements, on the basis of n-1 into d orbitals, the whole of the transition elements have been divided into three series known as 3d, 4d and 5d series. The orbitals are filled in order of their increasing energy. Thus 4s orbitals having lesser energy is filled first to its full capacity, that is 4s2, than the 3d orbital having higher energy. Thus 3d orbital starts filling at scandium only when 4s orbital is full to its capacity. The exactly half filled and completely filled d orbitals are extra stable. The electronic configuration of 3d series, 4d series and 5d series are written as by taking the noble gas configurations: organ having atomic number 18 and 3d 1 to 10, 4s2, that is for 3d series, and for 4d series we have krypton with atomic number 36 and 41 to 10, 5s2, and 5d series consists of we have xenon with atomic number 54. Here 4f orbitals are completely filled, so we have to write 4f14, then 5d 1 to 10 and 6s2. So this is how we have to write the electronic configuration of the three series that are included in the d block elements. So coming to 3d series, we have scandium. It starts with scandium 21 with organ 18 and 4s2 and 3d1, so total 21. Like that, titanium is written as organ 3d2 4s2, vanadium is written as organ 3d3 4s2. And now for chromium it should be 3d4 and 4s1 4s2, but instead it is written as organ 3d5 4s1, because there is extra stability given to the half filled and completely filled d orbitals. In the same way we can observe for copper also, it should be 3d9 4s2, instead it is written as 3d10 4s1 for completely filled extra stable. So this is about the electronic configuration of 3d series. And next, coming to the electronic configuration of the next series, that is 4d series, which starts from yttrium and ends with cadmium. And so the atomic number is 39. Here we take the noble gas configuration for krypton, and it is written as 41 5s2, for zirconium 42 5s2. Likewise, but niobium, it should be 43 and 5s2, instead it is given 44 5s1. So here niobium, ruthenium, rhodium and palladium, these are the exceptional cases, will be discussed later. And for molybdenum it is half filled d orbitals, and for silver also that is completely filled d orbitals. So for extra stability their configuration is written like that. But the anomalous configurations of niobium, ruthenium, rhodium, palladium, it might be due to nuclear electron and electron forces. Okay, and this is how we have to write the configuration for 4d series. And coming to 5d series, so here we have to take lanthanum, that is 57, and the next element to lanthanum is cerium up to lutetium. They come under inner transition elements because f orbital starts filling, so they are called as inner transition elements. They have incompletely filled f orbitals, and the f orbitals completely filled from hafnium. So we have to write the electronic configuration like this, taking noble gas configuration for xenon, then 4f14, and next comes 6s2 and 5d2. Here also for tungsten and gold, it is extra stable configuration for half filled and completely filled d orbitals, and the other exception case is platinum. This might be due to electron-electron interactions. So these are the electronic configurations for three series like 3D, 4D and 5D. And the next comes the variable valences. This is one of the most striking feature of the transition elements. The cause of showing different oxidation states is due to the fact that there is only a small difference between the energies of ns orbitals as well as n-1 into d orbitals, so that what happens is that both ns and n-1 into d electrons can participate in bond formation. So all transition here also, all transition elements except first and last, most probably they do not exhibit variable oxidation states. It is noted that in some elements all n-1 into d electrons are not involved in bonding. For example, for iron, only unpaired electrons of 3d subshell take part in bond formation. Okay, so all the ns and d orbitals are not taking part. Only incomplete or unpaired electrons of 3d subshell are taking part for bond formation. If all the unpaired electrons would have participated, including ns, the oxidation state for iron would be +6. So in some cases only those orbitals with unpaired electrons takes part in bond formation. And one more thing is that across a period the +2 oxidation state becomes more stable while +3 becomes less stable. In 3D series, first 5 elements in which 3D subshells contains only unpaired electrons, minimum oxidation number is given by outer s orbitals, while maximum oxidation number is given by sum of both s and inner d electrons. This can be seen in the table given in the next slide. In the next 5 elements in which 3D subshell has some paired electrons, the minimum oxidation number is still given by outer s orbitals, while the maximum oxidation number is not related with the electronic configuration. Since the electronic structure of atoms of the second and third transition series do not exactly follow the pattern of the first series, the above points are only valid for 3D subshell. So these are the tables for the variable oxidation states of 3D series. So scandium shows +2, +3, titanium shows +2, +3 and +4 here, and it continues. Here we can observe that for the first 5 elements the minimum oxidation state is given by electrons of the s orbital, while the maximum oxidation state is given by the sum of both the s and d orbitals, whereas when we go down, when we go from cobalt and to zinc, it's not like that. Still the minimum oxidation state is given by s orbitals, but the maximum is not equal to the electronic configuration. And the maximum oxidation state of this 3D series is shown by manganese, that is +7. Coming to next series, we have yttrium to cadmium, yttrium, zirconium, niobium, molybdenum, technetium, ruthenium, rhodium, palladium, silver and cadmium. So oxidation states here also for yttrium it is only +3 and for cadmium it is +2, and middle of that zirconium to silver we can see number of oxidation states. Here also technetium shows the maximum oxidation state of +7 and ruthenium is +8 up to +8. So the maximum oxidation state of this 4D series is shown by ruthenium with +8 oxidation state. And coming to the last series, that is 5D series, that starts from lanthanum to mercury. Here also lanthanum shows only +3 oxidation state, and hafnium +3, +4. Tantalum it's somewhat uncertain, and rhenium shows +7 as its maximum oxidation state, and osmium +8. So here also we can observe just like in 4D series, here also the maximum oxidation state is given by osmium, that is +8. And the next property is magnetic property. The magnetic properties of an individual atom or ion will result from the combination of spin moment of the electron and the orbital moment of the electron. So we can observe here both magnetic moments, that is spin moment of the electron and the orbital moment of the electron. So for calculating the magnetic moment of these d block elements, we have to consider the spin magnetic moment and orbital magnetic moment. The d block elements generally exhibit diamagnetic and paramagnetic behaviors. So what are diamagnetic and paramagnetic behavior? So coming to paramagnetism, these are the substances which can be weakly attracted into the magnetic field when placed in an external magnetic field, and they allow the magnetic lines of force to pass through them. These substances lose magnetism when the magnetic field is removed. That means they exhibit the magnetic behavior. So paramagnetic behavior is caused by the presence of unpaired electrons. So if a substance has to say that it is paramagnetic substance, that means it should consist of unpaired electrons. Since most of the transition elements have unpaired electrons, they are paramagnetic in behavior. So next is diamagnetism, and the substances which are repelled by the magnetic field. That means when a substance is kept in an external magnetic field, it occupies perpendicular, it arranges itself in a perpendicular direction to that of the external magnetic field. So that tend to set themselves at right angles to the field. Thus a diamagnetic substance repels the external magnetic field, and this can be shown by the substances having filled orbitals. So this is about paramagnetism and diamagnetism. And coming to magnetic moments, since each unpaired electron is regarded as a micromagnet having certain value of magnetic moment, and the total magnetic moment can be calculated by mu is equal to square root of n into n plus 2 Bohr magnetons, where n is given as number of unpaired electrons and mu is the magnetic moment. Experimentally, the same magnetic moment can be determined by Faraday and Gauss methods. Okay, next coming to the magnetic moment of first element. So for example, if we take 3D series elements like scandium to zinc, only magnetic moment, they need some unpaired electrons, so we can consider from titanium to copper. So some are tripositive and the other are dipositive ions are taken, and the number of unpaired electrons present in those ions is given clearly. And here we can observe two types of magnetic moments, that is experimental values and calculated values. And we can observe the most important thing is that up to manganese 2 plus and iron 3 plus, the experimental values they coincide with the calculated values, whereas from iron 2 plus to the down Cu2 plus, the experimental values are somewhat higher than the calculated values. The reason is being that we can observe that the experimental values are greater than the calculated values in the rest half. It is noted that discrepancy is due to the fact that in the first half spin only magnetic moment is only seen, while in the second half both spin magnetic moment and orbital magnetic moment is seen. Okay, so that means in the first half, that is up to manganese and iron, because the experimental values are similar with the calculated values, only spin only magnetic moment is present and the orbital magnetic moment is quenched. But from Fe plus 2 to Cu2 plus, here the experimental values are somewhat higher. So here in the second half both spin magnetic moment and orbital magnetic moment is seen. This is the main reason is that in general in the d block elements, the orbital contribution is usually quenched out by interaction with the electric fields of the ligands in its environment, and the magnetic moment is close to the simple spin only formula. So this is the reason when the electric fields of the ligands come in interaction with the d block elements, their orbital magnetic moment is quenched out. That's why there is a difference in the 3D series among the first half and the second half magnetic moments. Okay, then when there is only spin magnetic moment, we have to calculate the magnetic moment of that elements using spin magnetic moment, which is given by mu s is equal to square root of 4s into s plus 1 Bohr magnetons. If both are present, just like in second half, we have to sum up the magnetic moments like spin magnetic moment plus orbital magnetic moment, which can be given by mu is equal to mu s plus mu l equal to square root of 4s into s plus 1 plus l into l plus 1 Bohr magnetons. So this equation is generally used to calculate mu of the ions of transition series. If there is no orbital contribution for the magnetic moment, then the value of mu is given by mu is equal to square root of n into n plus 2 Bohr magnetons. So this is about the calculation of magnetic moment and magnetism of the 3D series elements. And magnetic moment... So next, coming to the catalytic properties. So the other most important property of the transition elements is that they act as very good catalysts. Many transition elements in their compounds show catalytic properties, reason being that they show variable oxidation states and they can easily lend and withdraw electrons from the reagent, which provides a lower energy pathway to cross the energy barrier. Also, the concentration of the reactant molecules increases at this point. They form complexes and thus gives the products. So because of this variable oxidation states, they can easily withdraw and easily lend electrons to the reagent, which provides a lower energy pathway to cross the energy barrier to give the products. For example, V2O5, which is used in the formation of sulfur trioxide, vanadium is reduced from +5 oxidation state to +4 due to the formation of tetroxide. And few more examples we can see from the next slide. Another reason is that the transition elements have vacant n-1 into d orbitals in addition to ns electrons, which are also used in bonding with the reactant molecules. Thus, the concentration of the reactant molecules increase at the surface of the catalyst, forms transition state with low activation energy. In this way, the reaction proceeds with low activation energy. So these are the two reasons why the transition elements act as good catalyst. And few more examples for transition elements that act as catalysts. Nickel, that is used in hydrogenation of oils. Iron and molybdenum are used in manufacture of ammonia and Haber's process. Vanadium oxide is used in the manufacture of sulfuric acid by contact process. And titanium tetrachloride with trialkyl aluminum is used as Ziegler-Natta catalyst in the production of polythene, and CuCl2 is used in the production of chlorine by Deacon's process. So this is about the catalytic property of transition elements. Next comes complex formation. So the transition metals have a great tendency to form complexes. In turn, this is due to two main reasons. The cations of transition metals are relatively small in size and have high effective nuclear charge. Thus, they have high positive charge density, which facilitates the acceptance of lone pair of electrons from other molecules or ions. The cations of transition metals have vacant inner d orbitals having appropriate energy to accept lone pair of electrons from the ligands. And in this way, the bonds that are formed are known as coordinate bonds, and hence the complexes are named as coordinate complex. So in the formation of complexes, we have two types of ligands. Their participation can be seen like this, that is weak ligands and strong ligands. The weak ligands like CO, NO and C2H4 forms complexes only when the transition metal are in low oxidation states, and this is due to the presence of vacant orbitals in addition to the lone pair of electrons of donor atoms. And they first form, in this process, they first form sigma bonds by donating its electrons followed by sharing with the metal atom. The vacant orbitals of the ligands then accept electrons from the filled metal orbitals to form a pi bond, which adds strength to the sigma bond. The pi bond formation is possible when the metal has vacant orbitals, that is, when the metal is in low or zero oxidation state. So this is the reason why the weak ligands, they form complexes with transition metals when they are in low oxidation state. Coming to the strong ligands like NH3, FCN, they can form complexes with transition metals even when they are in high oxidation states. This is because the small highly charged or neutral ligands with a lone pair of electrons can form strong sigma bonds by donating lone pair of electrons. This is due to the greater attraction of metal ion for ligand electrons. So this is how we have weak ligands and strong ligands that form complexes with transition metals, and we can observe some trends in transition series in the formation of complexes. In each transition series, the stability of complexes increases with increase in atomic number of the element, and for a particular oxidation state with decrease in size of its atom. And the second point is, when the transition metal atom exhibits more than one oxidation state, the higher valent ion forms more stable complexes. These two are very important points about the stability of complexes. That means increase in atomic number across a period will gives more stable complex, and also in a particular oxidation state when the metal is having lesser size, that is more stable. And when the transition metal atom exhibits more than one oxidation state, and among the two, the higher valent one will give the more stable complex. And the next one is, for example, here for higher valent ion form, Fe3 plus is there, Fe2 plus is there, and the complex for Fe3 plus gives more stable complex rather than Fe2 plus. And we can study many more examples. And the next one is the stability of complexes. The stability of complexes increases, as we said earlier, with increase in atomic number in a particular series of transition metals. In a group, the stability of the complex increases with decrease of size of the element, provided it is in the same oxidation state. And the stability of the transition metals is related with stability constant, which is given as follows. Metal plus ligand gives rise to metal ligand complex, and the equilibrium constant is given as M, concentration of metal ligand, concentration of metal ligand by concentration of metal into concentration of ligand. And the next one is, it's important one, among all the metals present in the long form of periodic table, transition metals forms more stable complexes. And the last one is stabilities of various oxidation states. So we know that transition metals, we have studied earlier that transition metals or D block elements exhibit variable oxidation states. So among the variable oxidation states, how the stability varies is studied here. Within each series of the transition groups, there is a difference in stability of the various oxidation states that exist. In general, the second and third row elements exhibit higher coordination numbers, and their higher oxidation states are more stable than the corresponding first row elements. The relative stabilities of various oxidation states of 3D series elements can be correlated with extra stability of 3D0, 3D5 and 3D10 configurations. For example, here given titanium 4 plus, which is having 0 unpaired electrons, is more stable than titanium 3 plus, which is having 1 unpaired electron, because 3D0 is incompletely filled. And Mn2 plus 3D5 is more stable than Mn3 plus 3D4. But such generalization for the relative stabilities of various oxidation states is not true in case of 4D and 5D series. Why? Because coming to 4D and 5D series elements, the higher oxidation states are generally more stable than those of the 3D series. For example, if we take molybdenum and technetium 4D series elements and tungsten and rhodium 5D series elements, they form oxyanions in which the concerned transition elements are present in their maximum oxidation states, that is molybdenum plus 6, technetium plus 7, tungsten plus 6 and rhenium plus 7. Also, the highest oxidation states of 4D and 5D elements are found in compounds containing more electronegative elements like fluorine, oxygen, chlorine, and this is evident by the existence of ruthenium O4, osmium O4, tungsten Cl6 and platinum F6. Okay, so this is all about the stabilities of various oxidation states, and with this we complete the properties of d block elements. I hope this would be very much beneficial for the second year BSc students if they go through this video. Thank you very much.